With the Walt Disney Company having largely been vacated out of the box office this December by audiences who do not wish to see Wish nor the Marvels, it is now something quite bizarre to see. It is the month of Warner Brothers, and yes, we reviewed Wonka last week and we found it, well, a big win for Warner Brothers, 7.5 out of 10, and that's good enough to give them the lift they need. But a fin is flapping in the ocean right now, and it may be sapping the fun out of Warner Brothers indeed. We're talking about Amber Heard and the rest of the cast of Aquaman 2. Yes, Mr. Mamoa, we're sorry for you because surely Amber Heard is pulling down your chances. And why do we say that? Well, because the reviews don't look good, and neither does the box office. We're going to explain, ladies and gentlemen, why this is yet another case of not superhero fatigue, but fatigue, in fact, with Hollywood, period. Hello, folks. Welcome back to the channel that's changing Hollywood. One video at a time. Happy to have each and every one of you. If you are so inclined, consider clicking the like button as we get started. And we begin at that place of total wholesomeness and accuracy, of course, Rotten Tomatoes. It has never been manipulated, not a single time. You get the cynicism and the sarcasm, I hope. Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, though, is the movie we are taking a look at today. And there's something interesting that we can find out just by looking at Rotten Tomatoes, and that is that if we take a look here at the Tomatometer, we find out that, well, top critics is different than all critics. Take a look at this. All critics, you just saw the top critics. All critics at 39% with a 5 out of 10. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means when you see that 5 out of 10, it just barely has to tip over to that 10 mark in order for these reviews to go positive. And so, for whatever reason, the critics in this case are doing the opposite of what we're used to seeing. They are specifically giving this movie just low enough of a score to make it rotten. It appears that the critics, who, when we're looking at all critics, by the way, many of them, their careers are tied to how they review movies and their access as well. They are deciding that for whatever reason, that it's better for them to put a splat on this film, even if it's a 5 out of 10 overall, which would normally be at the precipice of fresh. Now, I would suggest that perhaps that's because there's no pressure on them to review this well, because there's no pressure on DC to continue with this universe. It's time to jump ship and go to the good ship James Gunn. If we look at top critics, on the other hand, they are lambasting this thing, only 27% and 4.3 out of 10, no good indeed. If we take a look at the actual reviews we have for it, we're going to find out that they are none too happy. Mike Massey says the entire affair is so painfully formulaic, predictable, and unoriginal that it feels as if a Fast and Furious film staged underwater. Ouch! Very bad. Liz Shannon Miller says, did anyone involved with the making of Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom even want to make an Aquaman movie? Luke, who does like this at least a little bit, says, it's disposable entertainment. Folks, when you're getting reviews that are positive, and the main line from your positive review is, it's disposable entertainment. That's not positive. That's just meh. Down here, J. Don Burnham says, not one part of this movie, the effects, the storyline, the emotional core works. Everything is recycled from other superhero movies. It's time to give the genre an at-sea burial. Amazing to me that so many are wishing to say goodbye to the superhero films which have lifted and subsidized the rest of Hollywood. I don't think it's time to do that. I think it's time to make good movies again. No matter what genre you're in, I think you must make quality stuff. I do want to point out again, folks, though, take a look at this by Caitlin Booth out of Bleeding Cool. This is what I'm talking about when I'm saying that for whatever reason, the critics are deciding to splat this, despite the fact that it's right on the edge for them, apparently. So keep that in mind. There's something going on here where critics who are usually inclined to give a film like right on the edge so that they can say, well, I didn't really like it, but I liked it enough to give it a positive. They're, on the other hand, doing this and saying, it's just enough to be not a good movie. Caitlin Booth says, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom is a mess of a film in every way that counts, in the story and special effects, and in the end, none of it amounts to anything, because we all know this is a chapter ending with nothing to actually say about said ending. Again, a 5 out of 10, but a splat nevertheless. And there are plenty of splats to see as we go through that. But what does this mean for the box office, of course? Well, here's what it means. This out of Deadline by Anthony D'Alessandro and Nancy Tartaglione. And why is this by two authors, you might ask? Well, because Mr. D'Alessandro covers the domestic side and Miss Tartaglione covers the international. Aquaman 2, The Big Fish, and Warner Brothers Christmas Troika with Wonka and Color Purple, but holiday box office not looking bright. Now, we can largely say that the Color Purple is going to be a non-factor, as we said before, and that's not good for a number of people involved in that, specifically Halle Bailey, because Halle Bailey, of course, of the Little Mermaid fame, she was just on that PR resuscitation tour with Rachel Zegler. So the fact that that did not lift the Color Purple, not good. But here's the article. After domestic box office that's been battered by double strikes, exhibition, and the industry overall, we can thank Warner Brothers for leaving 3 potential 100 million grossing movies under the tree: Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, Wonka, and The Color Purple. But here's the deal, folks. One of those is going to do well, and the other 2 are stinkers and sinkers. It goes on to talk about how this is not going to be the happy Christmas that many of you out there are used to seeing when it comes to December's, and that's because Disney has been vacated. No Marvels, no Wish. Yes, they're still out there, but nobody's going to see them. And that is in direct contrast to what we are used to seeing with Disney. And that's why Disney's so important to the industry and to theaters, is because Disney would put out these big tent poles around Christmas time, and then that would subsidize the rest of the industry to put out their artsy-fartsy awards show fodder. And then, too, you know, if Warner Brothers puts out something that barely makes money, well, fine, so be it. Now, here is what we've got, of course. It's talking about Avatar: The Way of Water, but we're wanting to see how Aquaman 2 might fare with these very terrible sort of reviews. And here's what it says. The sequel, which has filmmaker James Wan back in the director's seat, has been 3 years in the making, with some starts and stops due to the pandemic. It doesn't mention in here that it has a leading actress in a movie that is about family, who is someone the public now views as being antithetical to the entire idea of family, someone who will harm family members, let's say, in a leading role. And it doesn't discuss that she is significantly in the film. Now, do I think that that has a major impact on the domestic versus worldwide box office? Yes, I do. And that's because domestically, it's a huge turnoff to people. They don't want to go watch Amber Heard. And in China, let's say, where, by the way, the percentages that Warner Brothers will get back are tiny and minuscule in comparison to the domestic numbers, well, China doesn't know that much about Amber Heard. They're not even connected to the same internet that we are. They don't follow this sort of thing. And so as a result, they have no idea who Amber Heard is, and they don't care. And they don't care about Johnny Depp or her connections thereof. But let's continue reading. Greenlighted under the previous Walter Hamada DC administration, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom is expected to do around $40 million over the 4-day Christmas weekend. This is also important to notice that this is not a Zaslav effort. This is a Zaslav effort to get this thing out and get it away from them. You've seen many reports, by the way, lately that Warner Brothers might be going bankrupt. That's a bunch of nonsense. It's not going to go bankrupt. Sorry to rain on the parade of those who might think that's going to happen. But what is happening, of course, is that Warner Brothers may be partnering with Paramount. We'll have stories on that very soon. All of that said, Warner Brothers and Zaslav are in survival mode to get these old pieces of material out the door and switch over to the James Gunn stuff. We'll see how that plays out. This one, however, is expected to do only a $40 million plus over the 4-day Christmas weekend. In other words, an average of $10 million per day. That is not good for the holidays. While that's possibly a lower gross than even the Marvels' 3-day start of $46.1 million, and many might be quick to scream superhero fatigue, there are a couple of factors in hand. Again, they're not going to mention how unpopular Amber Heard is. Overseas is much better for Aquaman 2, with a 73 market launch looking to deliver $75 to $80 million, including China, which, remember, that's what I'm talking about. Some of those international markets, they don't know and they don't care about who's in the movie. They don't follow this stuff. That worldwide debut is at its highest would be $110 million through Sunday. Now, what that means, folks, is that we're looking at its highest, 110, so barely breaking the $100 million mark. And that's not good for a movie that probably needs to make a lot more in order to break even, a lot more. The Middle Kingdom, which was a prime territory for the first movie, is looking at $25 to $30 million alone. And if you've watched this channel or the Valiant Renegade channel very much, you know that the higher the percentage of China in your overall box office, the less money you are making, because China sends back about 15 to 20% of everything you make. That's all you get back from all of that. So of that 25 to 30 million, you are looking at a minuscule number. You might be looking at something like $5 million coming back from China. The sequel currently leads pre-sales through the frame in the PRC, but remember, we are far from the heady days of 2018 when the original bowed to 93 million plus at historic rates. So nothing here is positive. Everything is negative. And what that means is that for theater owners, who we, by the way, are pulling for you theater owners, you're not going to get an assist from Disney. You're not going to get an assist from Aquaman 2. You're not going to get an assist from Color Purple. But The movie that's all about meritocracy and entrepreneurship, Wonka, well, that might be enough to save the day. I don't think it has the legs of The Greatest Showman, but it has legs. And for the sake of theater owners who are going to have a very rough 2024, I'm pulling for Wonka and pure imagination. Let's hope that it can save the day enough to get us through these holidays. And maybe Hollywood is going to learn a lesson. We've been trying to teach that lesson for a while. Some are beginning to learn it. Hopefully Zaslav has, and hopefully James Gunn can deliver. As for Disney, I hesitate to say that they are changing their trajectory whatsoever. Based on what we've seen out of the trades today, I suspect that everyone knows 2024 could be the year of reckoning for Bob Iger and the mouse. All right, folks, that's the video for today. We hope you had a good time. If you did, consider clicking the like button, share, subscribe, and when you click it, you stick it to the algorithms. It's the notification bell. Drop a comment down below. Let us know your thoughts. And folks, wherever you are and whatever you're doing, keep learning, keep growing, and keep having fun.
Listen up, my brothers and sisters. You've been listening to Phils and those with an agenda to destroy your brain cells for far too long. It's time to change your way of doing things. Hold up. TPP is the place to be. Covering the news so honestly. It's a team that's cool and tried and true. Ahead of the culture curve, they're trying to keep you. Jonas and Pro, they run the show, and they dragged in the bearded culture casino. You got Valiant and Lord and Fourth of Line. Wonderful people, yeah, they're alright. They got weird bringing in people like Floral, but made no mistake with Lorena Creole. Amelia and John, stuttering guitarist. Martin and Tawny, and someone called CMS. Fat Steven makes a bunch of all the graphics. Did I mention a partnership with Bending in the comics? Fat Sky is a guy, and Doc Matt does the web stuff. There's probably some people I missed. I hope they're not telling you the news. That should be fun. With accurate info that's not been spun, you can figure it out as you will see. The TPP is the place to be.
Yeah, Wilton. That was actually pretty good, or white. But I think you might have forgotten Vash.
Well, he lost all his friends. But it was implied.